give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever. His kingdom will never end. How will this be? Mary asked the angel, since I am a virgin? The angel answered, the Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. So the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God. Even Elizabeth, your relative, is going to have a child in her old age, and she who was said to be barren is in her 6th month. For nothing is impossible with God. I am the Lord's servant, Mary answered. May it be to me as you have said. Then the angel left her. Some really interesting similarities here. First of all, obviously both receive a birth announcement. They're obviously both, I'm going to say it, freaked out. Zechariah in the temple, she in some ordinary component, incident in her life. This angel appears. Whoa. They're startled. He immediately understands they're afraid and calms them down. He gives both Zechariah and Mary, says, here's the name. And he identifies and explains their role in God's plan. They're going to be great, and what the opportunity and the realization is in this son in God's plan. Both Zechariah and Mary hear this. A number of similarities. But it's interesting, again, that we know so little of her. Did you notice? She's referred to without even her name in the first verse. We're just to a virgin pledged to what? Joseph is identified before she is. No training, no lineage in and of herself, no regimen, no preparation, no special place. And she says something that, again, looks almost identical to what Zechariah says. Remember, he said, well, how can I be sure of this? She's like, how will this be? Again, you look at these two phrases, they seem almost identical. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to serve as an interim pastor for a small church in the Illinois-Wisconsin line. And it was about an hour away, and so my usual 6 days and 50, 60 hours a week pastoring, I wasn't able to accommodate. And so to fill some of my days throughout the week, because it was so far away and I'd work at home, I took on a substitute teaching job. Now, I had taught 6th grade and coached back in a long time ago. But I will admit, I don't think anybody should just think, well, I need some money, I'm going to go substitute teach. I'm not going to call it a gift, but I would say there should be a fit, okay? All right? And I really enjoy teaching, and so you know what, this is great. And we lived in an area where Naperville, I believe now, is the 3rd largest city in Illinois, well over 100,000 people, and some large schools, very good schools. And so I took deliberately assignments from kindergarten to seniors. I worked in all 12 grades because I wanted to see, I had taught years ago, I wanted to see what's happening. And I frankly really enjoyed it. But I'll be honest, it's a difficult thing to walk into a room of kids and you really expect them to listen to you? You do, because if they don't, it's not good. Okay? And some are harder to win over than others. I don't know why I looked at my son there. But, you know, and so what I would try to do is, if I could, compliment and affirm one of the students within the day, because I want to, I'm not fibbing or anything, but I want to win them over. I want them to see that I'm here for them, and I want to come back, and I always did. And so I think it was in 4th grade, I told the young boy one day, I said, man, what you did was really cool. I mean, the way you took this and that, and man, good job. And he goes, are you being sarcastic? Just like you, sir. Whoa. I mean, I was startled because, and it occurred to me, obviously, he had heard compliments couched in criticism and sarcasm. I don't know where his family, his home, but somewhere he had heard compliments that weren't intended to be so. And he immediately turned. I mean, this, fourth grade, are you being sarcastic? And no, I'm not. I'm really not. I really think this is cool what you did. And I think he believed me. You see, what he had to understand was you can say the same thing in two different contexts, and they can mean different things because of the attitude underlying. That's what's happening here. How can I be sure of this? What? On the top, both phrases seem identical. We know underneath, very different. Zechariah's going like, yeah, right. You're an angel of the Lord and you don't know, I can't, I mean, really. And Mary's like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm a virgin. How is that going to happen? That sounds awesome. You see the difference? The Lord did, Gabriel did. Which of the two announcements requires the greater miracle? I mean, I know Zechariah and Elizabeth are old, but they love each other and they're intimate. Mary is a virgin. Whose miracle was greater? I'm not saying that what happened for Elizabeth and Zechariah clearly was done by God, but virgin birth? Whoa. Who was prepared? Who was taught? Who was trained? Who was literally standing in the building described by and presented to a man to be built for him, the temple, to usher in and receive his presence? Zechariah. He was chosen by God for this moment. Oh, missed it. Missed it. She, on the other hand, if had missed it, none of us would have thought anything strange had happened. Of course she missed it. What do you expect? She's a kid. You're telling her that, and she seized it. Wow. And we know, as you read on later, how she bursts into song about how God has chosen her and allowed her to be involved in his plans. Read through it. Like it's just an astounding thing where the Spirit just speaks through Mary. She takes such joy in what God has chosen to do through her and what he's going to accomplish through her son. Zechariah sings also. A page later, 9-10 months late. 9 to 10 months late. Now, I'm glad he was, and now look, I think he was probably a wonderful man. I really do. I think he was a great guy. Fervent, faithful, consistent, a man of integrity. His wife, yes. But man, he had this God-given moment, and it slipped right through his fingers. Shucks. Mary. A few years ago, I had the privilege of coming to faith. I'll be honest, I wasn't a believer in my little town of Parkers. I came to faith later in life and ended up at Willow Creek. Maybe you've heard of Bill Hybels. At the time, 16,000 people a weekend would attend Willow. And I remember my first time there, I was amazed because the furniture wasn't torn and there weren't dust balls on the floor. And I thought something must be wrong because every church I'd been in always had secondhand furniture. And I'll be honest, it did. And so I remember being struck by that. And I ended up getting baptized by Bill and in the lake. It was very memorable. But I got involved in the singles ministry. And of a church that size, the singles ministry of, at that time, 30s to 40s, was 350 to 500 people. It was quite a deal when we would have gatherings. Well, one week, the leader of that ministry resigned. Oh, and we loved him. I mean, he's the guy that brought me in. He's like, Tom, you need to be here. This, we need you. You need, okay? And within a few months, he resigned. It just, Now, within a ministry that big, you need small group leaders and coaches, and then there were other coaches a little higher up and some on staff. And so a couple people applied, and one guy in particular was really well-liked, really noted for who he was and what he did. And he went through the process and interviewed and was offered the position. Wow. This was a real plum for him. And he took the job. And a week later, he resigned. A week. Now, I don't know. I had a chance to talk to him, but I don't believe it was God's plan to bring him in for a week and have him resign. Something was missed in the process leading up, or when he came in, something he heard. He was hearing voices he shouldn't have. I don't know. There's somebody right there that missed an opportunity. Contrast that to one of the churches I was working with a few years ago needed a recovery ministry, addiction recovery. And I've been delivered from a number of things in my life, and I said, this is something I'd really like to help you with. And so I was charged with interviewing a team and creating this ministry, and I interviewed well over 30 people to try and find about 10 to 12 people to form a team to begin a recovery ministry. And one of the people I brought in was a wonderful guy by the name of John. I will never forget talking to John in this room, big, long room. We're sitting at a table, and I explained, here's what's happening, here's the need, here's the burden, here's the ministry, this is what we're looking for, this is what I'm told you can bring. And we started to talk, and he started to laugh. He starts to laugh. Now, I've interviewed people. I don't get a lot of people that laugh during interviews, although I have to admit, I laugh a lot in mine. But I looked at him, and I thought, what's the deal? And he goes, this is so God. I said, what? He said, this is so God. And he began to tell me about how he was raised by an alcoholic mother and a very distant, he was present but distant father. And he just had a horrible, horrible childhood. And how God just delivered him from that. And now he was just playing guitar once in a while in the worship team. And we're talking, and I just said, whoa. And we just both thought, God is calling you. And he said, yeah. I made him the worship leader of that ministry. He knocked it out of the park. And after what I'd done there, another church said, hey, could you come over and do something like that here? I went over there a couple years later, and I thought, I'm not going to go on a, well, I could, but I'd really rather have John with me. And I'm with you, man. And it was amazing, the level of worship that wow, he just rocked it. And he would disciple the members of the team. He seized the opportunity. I recall another church in the area. Pastor had been there for years, served faithfully. People loved him. Time came for him to step down and resign. He does, and this is a big church of 1,200 people at the time. So you can imagine people all over the country are applying for this job. This is big-time vetting and search. A year goes on. They narrow it down. They find the finalists, looking at sermons, interviewing multiple visits. They find the guy, and they offer him the position. He says, yes. Weeks later, he resigned. That's twice I've seen this. It just,